Hey everybody, it's your girl Tanya. Welcome to another episode of Books and Brown Liquor. And this video is my March wrap up, my book wrap up for the month of March. So March was a really good reading month for me. I don't think I was disappointed at all, not one time. So let's get into it. For the month of March, I read 6 books and I'm just gonna jump right in. So my first book for March was The Good Girl by Mary Kubika. The main character in this book is Mia/Chloe. And the story follows, this is the story of a girl who is basically, her boyfriend is a flake. They make plans to meet in a bar. He never shows up. She decides to go home with a good-looking, intriguing stranger. This is the one night stand she will never forget, okay? Basically, she ends up getting kidnapped, okay? The story is told in 2 timelines, before she comes home and then after. Before she comes home, it's told from multiple narratives, and basically it's like the events that take place before she is found. After, the second timeline is after she comes back, she's now going by the name Chloe. Okay, and she has no memory of what took place. She has no memory of the abduction whatsoever. Okay, so at first, I'm not gonna lie, at first this book was kind of slow for me, even though it is an interesting premise. Excuse me, just had lunch. The second half of the book, you're hit with a plot twist. And then for me, I enjoyed the second half of the book. It kind of made up for it. But this author, Mary Kubika, I do like her writing style. I like the fact that the stories are told from multiple narratives. And then you kind of put the pieces together and it all makes sense. So I enjoyed The Good Girl by Mary Kubika. Cool. But I did like Local Women Missing better. But I loved it. I'm sorry. But anyway, The Good Girl by Mary Kubika. It was cool. The next book, Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. Not a fan of this book. And I see so many people really like this book, and I didn't care for it that much. Horrorstor is about basically a store like IKEA. So it's like a knockoff IKEA. And every evening while the store is closed, despite the fact that they have security, the store is trashed. It's vandalized in the middle of the night. Nothing is ever caught on camera. So there are a group of employees that are hired to do OT and basically keep an eye on the store to kind of find out what's going on, what's causing all this weirdness. Like I said, it was a good premise. It got me interested enough to read it. I did not like this book, and I went into detail about that in the book review. I did not like this book. I did not enjoy it. And I get that even though it's supposed to be a horror story, it's kind of supposed to be a parody, but it wasn't scary, nor was it funny. So it didn't work for me. The characters were annoying. The dialogue did not work for me. It was like the dialogue of kids. As I said in my book review, it reminded me of Scooby-Doo and the Gang. These did not sound like adult people. Sorry, I'm recording and a text came through. My bad. Anyway, it didn't work for me. Like I said, it sounded like Scooby-Doo and the Gang. I literally could picture Shaggy and Scooby eating meatballs in the cafeteria. It wasn't scary. It wasn't funny. And even when it got to the end, when you get to the climactic event, even the climactic event, I was like, huh? It just didn't work for me. And for me, I think I gave it 2, and that was being generous. I just didn't like it at all. It really did not work for me. And I think you get the point. So we're gonna move on. I talked so much about this book. What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This book was oh my God. It was good. It was crazy. The pacing was good. The writing was good, because you're wondering, let me just give you some meat and potatoes, okay? Maggie and Nina sit down at the table and have dinner every Tuesday and act like they got class. And then immediately after dinner, Maggie is marched up to the attic where she is chained there. She is held captive in this home. So you got 2 women, 1 house. There's a lot of resentments between them. There's a lot of anger and bad blood between them. And at first you're like, okay, what the hell? Because in the beginning of the book, it paints Maggie as the bad guy. According to Nina, Maggie deserves to be punished. Maggie deserves to be held captive, to be chained up in this attic. But as the story unfolds, there's so many revelations. You kind of find yourself trying to figure out, okay, which one is the bad guy? Because they've both done horrible things. It's kind of hard to pick sides, but what I will say is one of these chicks is crazier than the other, okay? And the ending, this book was good as hell. It was really good, even though, like I said, it's disturbing, but it's good. Every single page, I was invested from beginning to end. I enjoyed this book, okay? And I actually ordered some more books by this author because I was like, yo, I need to read more, okay? Moving on. The next book I loved, Near the Bone by Christina Henry. I gave this a 5. I give this a 5, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I've talked so many times about reading stories where people are isolated in a cabin away from civilization. This is not the first story I've read about people, being in a cabin, isolated in the snow, but this story was very original to me. That's why I liked it. And the story was, I think it was well written. So we have our main character, Maddie. She lives in an isolated cabin on a mountain with her abusive husband, William. William is a monster. William is abusive in every sense of the word, okay? So from the very beginning of the book all the way to the end of the book, the stakes are high. Nina, it feels like Nina's like constantly fighting for her life, but the plot thickens because not only is she in this abusive relationship, isolated on isolated on a mountaintop in a cabin with this monster of a husband, they soon discover that there is a creature in the woods. It's eating up all the animals. It actually leaves the carcasses of animals around as decoration. It is very big, because they literally see its footprint. So it's very big. It's like a supersized bear. Like they have no idea what this is, but they can hear it howling at night. Okay, they can hear it howling at night, and it sounds scary. You can tell when it's close. It's intelligent. So it's not like your average animal. Whatever this thing is, it's very intelligent. Okay, and it's, like I said, from the very beginning, like it seems like she's constantly fighting for her life. So the plot thickens when Maddie decides she's had enough of William's shit. Okay, and honestly, even though there is a creature in the woods, it's just eating. It's just protecting itself. In my opinion, William is the monster. Okay, seriously, he's a bad human in every sense of the word. He's a bad human. Like, he literally thinks he owns Maddie. He treats Maddie like she is his property. Okay, so the plot thickens when, after years of being abused, Maddie has come to the decision that she is tired of being treated like something on the bottom of William's shoe, and she decides, I've had enough. But, like I said, it's like she's leaving one monster only to survive another out in the woods. And she hasn't been around civilization in years. She's not allowed to read. She's not allowed to phone, forget about it, like none of that. So it's a very brave step for her to make this decision. But like I said, she's had enough of this monster. So like I said, it's like she's leaving one monster and having to face another one to make her way back to civilization. So like I said, the stakes are very high from beginning to end. I enjoyed this book thoroughly. Every page, I was like, you're engrossed. You want to know, like, is she going to make it? It's crazy. She had to be super strong, super brave, even though he, like, when you're abused for so long, it does something to your will. You know, like, he beat the will out of her. You know what I mean? That fight back spirit, he beat that out of her. But despite all of that, I find her character admirable, because despite all of that, there was this spirit in her where she had to be really brave. She tapped into that regardless of what she went through. So I enjoyed this. Shout out to Maddie. She's a bad bitch. Moving on. The next book was Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This was a light read in comparison to all the others. No murders, no beatings. Our main character is Alejandra Mortiz. It kind of reminds you of Charmed meets Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, because she's the middle of three sisters. She comes from a magical family, and they each have their own abilities, right? They each have their own magical abilities. Like her mother is a bruja. Her mother is like part of this coven in Brooklyn, New York. This is the first book in the Brooklyn Bruja series. And Alex does not like magic. She kind of blames magic for, her father disappeared years ago, so she kind of blames magic for that. So her death day is coming up. And kind of like the movie Encanto, where on your death day, that's when you're gifted with your magic and you find out what your gift is. So on her death day, she does a spell to reject her magic. She doesn't want any magical power. She wants to be normal. But the spell backfires, and her entire family is banished to the underworld. So this book is about an adventure where she has to travel to the underworld and rescue her family. So like I said, it's like Charmed meets Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So this book, even though it's magic and adventure, it's not as dark and dangerous as the other books I read this month. So I liked it. If you're a fan of magic, if you're a fan of Harry Potter, this would work for you. So I enjoyed it. Like I said, for me, this is a light read. This is a good time for me. All right. And I saved the creepiest for last. The last book I read in March is Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I've heard so much about this book. I've heard people say, this is the scariest thing I've ever read, so of course I had to get my hands on it. And it did not disappoint. It did not disappoint, okay? Again, we have a couple traveling to an isolated cabin in the damn mountains of Colorado. We're following two characters, a man named Felix, and ironically, the main character is named Felix Blackwell, the same name as the author. So the book kind of reads like he's retelling something that really happened. So I was like, did anyone else notice that? Like he's telling a story that really happened. So the main character is actually named Felix Blackwell, and the other character is his fiance, Faye. So they go away on this little, isolated cabin that her family owns. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But, and Faye has a history of not sleeping well, and she also has a history of sleepwalking. So while they are on this weekend getaway, he can hear her talking in her sleep. But it sounds like she's having a conversation with someone or something. And then the sleepwalking and sleep talking escalates, and whatever she's having this conversation with, like it's asking, it wants to know information. It's asking her all, and she's literally like answering. So she's literally having a conversation with someone or something. But it's called Stolen Tongues because the voices that are coming out of her mouth are not hers. Well, yeah, the voices that are coming out of her mouth are not hers. So you got like all these different voices, and so they leave this place because it's creepy as hell. They go back home thinking, "Ooh, thank God we got away from there." No, bitch, it came home with you. So, like, he went through so much to try to save his fiance, but whatever this thing was, it like attached itself to her, and it was not going away easily. The story is very dark. It's very creepy. The imagery, like in your mind, you're picturing all the creepy things. The descriptions, I think the writing is good. I think the pacing is good. It was very atmospheric. Like everything that is described in the book, you're like terrified with these people. This book was very creepy, okay? I enjoyed it though. Of course I did. I enjoyed it. I like the fact that it was original. There were some indigenous roots. I know that for some people, they find that offensive, but for me, I didn't find any offense with that. Well, I'm not indigenous, but it worked for me. Because it wasn't your typical bad guy, your typical Texas Chainsaw Massacre Michael. By the way, when are they going to kill those mofos? But it worked for me. I liked it. So anyway, oh yeah, 5 stars all the way. Loved it. To me, it did live up to the hype. Now, there were parts where it was a little repetitive, but I think about if any of this stuff ever happened to me in real life, I would be completely undone. It was absolutely terrifying. Like, When you're in your bed sleeping, that's supposed to be when you're safe, when you're rejuvenating. And this book was like, for these people, it was an absolute nightmare, like nightmare. Just when you think you made it to safety, no, I'm here too. Like, so anyway, it was good. So that concludes my book wrap up for March. If you read any of these books and you would like to share your thoughts, feel free, leave comments. As always, thank you for watching. I wish you good reading. Bye.